Thank you all for joining us today. We're hosting town halls every Thursday while we're all stuck at home in an effort to keep you informed, answer your questions, and to keep the community engaged. We believe that opening the lines of communications and collaboration will be key to navigating these challenging times. Our goal with these town halls is to provide a forum for cooperation, sharing best practices and ideas, as well as asking and answering questions that may be tough. In addition, we've also launched the SIA Industry Hub on our website. For the most up-to-date resources and tools, including financial resources, please go to snowsports.org/COVID Hub. This page is updated daily, so please check it out often. You can also find the winter community on our Facebook group, accessible for the industry from the Industry Hub. This is a communication point for all of us to trade ideas, best practices, and ask and answer questions, most importantly. Town Hall, a view from the trenches, brand, sales manager, and retailer forum is the second in this series, and we're excited about the group we have assembled. And of course, our moderator, Kristin Carpenter. Many of you know Kristin, the founder of Verde Brand Communications. Kristin has been a part of ours in our group for a while, guiding us with her insights on the retail marketplace, and now with her insights on how businesses can navigate the COVID-19 issue. If you haven't listened to our two Channel Master COVID-19 related posts, please do so. They're listed on the Industry Hub and on our website. We'll kick off this discussion amongst our panelists and then spend some time answering your questions. Some of those have been sent in advance. We'll answer as many as we can with the time that we have allotted. To ask a question, just type it into the Q&A section on your desktop and we'll answer them in the order they're received. And we'll get to as many as we can. Again, thank you for joining us. And at this point, let me kick it over to Kristin.
Thank you, Nick. We're super happy to be here today. I want to say thank you to all of our amazing panelists, and we have an incredible turnout. So just know that this will be available for you on the SIA COVID resource page. We'll have all the links available for you there, as well as the replay. So very excited to be here today with what I would consider to be an all-star panel and a must-attend, I guess, webinar. It's great to be with you virtually. And I wanted to go ahead and introduce the panel and tee up what we're going to be talking about today and just dive right into the questions. So please welcome Dave Olson, who is the president and a partner at Erik's Bike and Board, which is a very, very successful leading specialty retailer in the cycling and snow sports realm. And I'd also like to welcome Matt O'Connor, who is the lead of Patagonia's Western sales. He has had a 12-year history with Patagonia, and he is currently running a very, very important part of the United States for that stalwart leadership brand. And then, of course, we have Tom Adams, who is the COO of Petzl North America and also the former director of the Office of Outdoor Recreation for the state of Utah. So just fantastic to have all of you here. We are here to talk today to give you a view from the trenches. All three of these leaders are working just like you to manage and navigate the hourly and daily changes that we're experiencing in our businesses right now as we're trying to launch Spring 21 and as we are supporting our buyers and trying to get our businesses in fighting shape for Spring 20. We have so many things that we're navigating. There's absolutely no blueprint. And so what we're trying to do here with the help of SIA is to create that blueprint and best practices right now for you and with you. So I'm going to just dive right in to our questions to make sure we get as much time with the panel as we possibly can. And my first question is for you, Dave. I would love for you to share how your retail business is transitioning from snow sports to bike in the past month with this crisis. If you can talk specifically about some of the things that have really stood out to you in that seasonal change and some of the things that you've done to remain nimble and agile in that process.
Well, actually, we're pretty fortunate there. Due to weather patterns in the Midwest, Erik's traditionally transitions our retail locations from winter to summer the first week of March. So we are a little bit ahead of COVID breaking. That said, we saw really favorable weather patterns for bicycle early in March. So our sales in March for the first 3 weeks were tremendous. People were really active. They were activating, getting out and riding. And again, this was before COVID was really having the impact that we're seeing today. So our real adjustment and shift has had to occur within the bike season itself. We've already kind of been shifted out of winter.
Okay, that's great to hear, and we will get in to the details a little bit more, everybody, just in terms of what Dave is doing to manage his regional managers and to create some new systems on the fly. I think that you haven't had in place before, so just know that there's definitely more to come. But it's great to hear. I have a question now for Matt. Matt, this is kind of a big one, and I know you have a lot to share. So Patagonia's rep force is obviously they are employees of Patagonia. And I would love it if you could share how you're working with your rep team to essentially, I think, be directive and offer support to the retail buyers right now, as we're seeing the change and shift in spring 20 and also launching spring 21 at the same time.
Right. Well, thanks, Kristin. And hey, everyone. Hope you're all doing okay and healthy and safe. So we're working with our team right now to focus on two specific key areas. And one is spring 20 and how we're going to kind of move through that. And then at the same time, being cognizant of the fact that we do have to help retailers plan for spring 21. So for spring 20, obviously it's a unique situation, limited travel, most stores are closed. What we're working with our rep group on is how we're going to react once things kind of start to come back to normal, once some travel restrictions are lifted, once stores start to open, and really be in close contact with retailers to understand what their immediate challenges are. And most of those are going to be starting to generate revenue. So what are our reps going to be best positioned to do to support retailers? They're going to be facing shortages of staff. They have lost valuable clinic time. They're going to have a wary and cautious consumer. So we're talking to our team for spring 20 about really reaching out, being in store, helping retailers sell product that they own to generate that revenue, give real-time clinics and real-time on-the-floor staff training around the product line, merchandising. A lot of these stores are going to open with merchandise that the consumer hasn't seen in person really. So it's going to be new and fresh, and bringing that product in those stories to life. So that's in the immediate present, and we're just kind of adjusting as things change in real time around travel and social distancing. And then in the planning ahead perspective, what we really want to do with our team is consider everything that retailers, especially independent specialty retailers, are going to have to deal with once those stores open back up. They're going to have limited time and resources. So how do we best prepare them and ease the burden of the buying season? So working on producing a product line video. Patagonia has been doing that for quite some time, but I think we're going to need to elevate it for this spring 21 season. And also how much groundwork we can do prior to the buying process, really looking at their business trends, looking at our product line, what carries forward, and how much we can simplify that process. So also setting up our showrooms for live streaming capability, and then working on a ton of digital assets to support both the sales rep with the loss of the sales meeting or the live sales meeting, but then the buyer and the retailer as well.
And I know that a lot of people in our communities are really looking to brands like Patagonia to almost like as a standard, if you will, in terms of how spring 21 can be conveyed without the platforms of Outdoor Retailer potentially. I know they haven't announced yet, but also Grassroots Outdoor Alliance has announced, obviously WWSRA, EORA, like there just really isn't going to be a hub like that. So it's heartening to hear that you are equipping your showrooms for live streams. And then are you doing anything in terms of enabling your reps to, I think, efficiently prepare and deliver these types of presentations to their buyers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally different model, right? I think, the reps, if there's reps, listening here today, you guys, you've built this foundational trust, these relationships. They're very personal. They're very strong one-on-one relationships. You have that rapport. And to some degree that goes away, especially if you're live streaming. It's a much different scenario. And then certainly working with a product line video and following up on that, you lose that contact point. So we actually use LinkedIn Learning. Our reps have the ability to access that tool, work with public speaking as a particular course, how to use these tools and build their skill set for that, because it is going to be much different. It'll be, it's a brave new world. So trying to provide those resources so they can build confidence in their skill set for that.
Yep. And I think that's fantastic that you're getting them ready to do that. And I don't think that this is a skill they'll ever not use again. It's very clear that everything is going to change going forward. And I hope that some great new efficiencies will come out of this. So obviously business partnership with stakeholders is continually transitioning right now. And I would love to ask Tom Adams how you are working to be a better partner to your buyers or potentially to your reps, et cetera, as you're sharing or managing better the adaptations and challenges with supply chain as you head into the spring and summer months.
Yeah, Kristin, that's a great question. And I'll also say, like Nick, thanks to everybody for being here. I know you are personally probably in isolation, but none of us are going to be successful if we're not pulling ourselves out of isolation into workshops like this. So thanks for doing this. The most important thing we can do here in Petzl America, keep in mind, like many brands, we're global and our headquarters are based in France, but here in North America, we have a very strong sales force, but we also have distribution for all of North America. And probably the most impactful thing we've done for our reps as well as our dealers is we shut down shop, ironically, as of Friday, February 13th. So Friday the 13th, we closed our doors, we sent everybody home, and it was solely to protect, well, I shouldn't say solely, but to protect everybody, but ideally to protect the warehouse. So our warehouse staff or our DC staff, if they're not shipping, we've committed to them. If there's any illness that comes in, we are shutting down shop. And so we put a ton of safety measures into place, some large, some really small, like, hey, we're going to open every single door in the facility so no touch points are there, right? We've done little things to keep them healthy and active. We've split up and reduced that DC force, so we have limited people in our DC as well. But what that's allowed us to do is continue to ship, continue to keep people healthy, and really try to hit it home with the staff on all levels that this is all about self-management. I mean, you can't be standing in the ski parking lots in big groups. You can't be doing those things, because at the end of the day, if any of our DCs shut down, stores stop getting product, reps start getting paychecks. I mean, as a company, we start to have to look at those tougher decisions like furloughs and layoffs. And fortunately at Petzl, Paul Petzl is a phenomenal guy. A lot of people ask me why I left a dreamy government job to go back to the private sector and do operations. But Paul's a phenomenal guy, and he's been really committed to the employees. So we've tried to carry that.
And just so everybody knows, we are going to talk with Tom at the end of this presentation today about some of the inside baseball he's been learning from his past government job around the CARES Act. So stay tuned at the very end for that. I'd love to pass another question over to you, Dave Olson. Can you talk about how you have, I think, activated your regional managers or created a better feedback loop among your 30 plus stores and your 2 e-com sites and the staff running those, knowing that business is happening, but it's obviously changing? How are you creating like almost a task force of sorts or empowering people to act on their feet during such a difficult time of crisis when things are changing every day?
That's very much been a focus from the beginning for us. We immediately started to switch over to Microsoft Teams as an asset to use for communication, which has been tremendous for us. There's a lot of different communication tools that exist that just happen to work out well for us. So what we've been doing is really creating a lot of chats with the right individuals involved and really openly sharing information, trying to share the tools that are available, but then also allowing people to deploy tools within their markets or within their stores that make the most sense. We're in 7 states, so there's not a solution that applies universally at every location. So we've really tried to kind of stay loose on that front, stay really tight with communication, but also loose in the sense that we trust our management team and allow them to make the best choices.
That's great. And then you also mentioned in one of our rehearsal calls that you were also a little bit reluctant to do anything other than act as a service right now. So you obviously are running an essential business, and it's not so much about, doing outreach to your external stakeholders. It's literally about letting them know, how you're operating for them. And I would love for you to just like elaborate a little bit on that, because I thought it was interesting that you said you're merchandising all of your, websites and any point of entry online, but you're still getting a lot of phone calls. And I think that's interesting for our membership to hear today in terms of just how people are interacting with your store from the public.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. We're doing everything we can to communicate that we're open to serve our customer, not openly trying to promote right now. That would be inappropriate. We're truly trying to remain open to service people's needs. But with that, with our online messaging, with our voice recorded messaging, store signage, people are still constantly calling just to verify that we are open. So that's been very interesting. We've also added quite a few services to try to make the customers comfortable as possible. We'd added curbside delivery, curbside drop-off for repair business, home delivery for product in a limited area and limited markets. But we're definitely trying to create as comfortable of an environment as we can for each customer, knowing that everyone has different needs.
I think it's also interesting for the audience to hear that, it may not be only hearing, sentiment via social media or anything around your business. It's actually going to be a lot of hand-to-hand combat, and the more human that you can be, I think, to your audiences, the better right now. So I just wanted everybody to see like that phone interaction or customer service is actually really critical right now. And it may be something that surprises most of us. Matt, this question is for you, and it's a soft goods view. And then hopefully we can get a little bit of a hard goods view as well from Tom at Petzl. But I would love for you to talk a little bit how you're managing at Patagonia, almost your inventory position. You talked about how you're going to be, in a great position to do ASAP and working with your buyers. Can you talk a little bit about how you're maybe learning from your buyers on where they are with that, and how Patagonia is preparing to kind of go through the months ahead in a way that they've never had to before?
Yeah, sure. So obviously the reality coming out of spring 20 is we're going to have more inventory than we expected or that we hoped for. And that's probably going to carry into fall 20. And the most important thing for us, the way we've been talking about it, is the most valuable asset that we have either as a brand or the retailer has right now is inventory that they're holding. That's where we can generate cash flow. That's where we can generate some margin dollars, keep the lights on, pay employees. So we're going to be looking very closely at how to make that inventory also as valuable as possible looking over the next 3 seasons. So how do we want to manage the size of the line? How do we want to manage what carries forward? The spring 20 line has not been broadly shopped. It's going to be new and exciting for a lot of customers when they finally see it in their local brick and mortar store. So that's one construct of it. The next construct is just changing how the sales force and we look at that available inventory. And there's a lot, that's a different model, right? Typically our reps right now would be headlong into planning for a sell-in type of approach, but now we really want to look at a sell-through and support approach. So kind of shifting gears there. So looking at retailers, once business starts to activate again, looking at open orders, what folks have coming in versus what we have in inventory, and then just staying in touch closely, seeing how their sales are, what's checking, and if something's really moving for them and they don't have it on a future order, following up with them and making sure they bring that inventory in based on our ATS to support maybe some of that pent up demand in those sales that are being driven once business is open again, so to speak.
So I have another question that's a little off script, but I have a feeling you're going to be okay with that because you're very well prepared for this. Everybody, just so you know, Matt has gone above and beyond to prepare for this and serve today. But I was curious to know, because you're managing a lot of the reps, are you changing what success looks like for them in terms of key performance indicators? Because I know, through working with a lot of brands over the years, that can be something that can really stall organizational change, is when we have old metrics, if you will, around performance. And this might be an opportunity to update those in terms of where buyers are.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating question. We have a pretty broad range of things that the reps work towards. We have a pretty comprehensive comp plan, if you would call it that. So, particular goals that they're trying to reach. And so it's multifaceted. And I think when we look at it, it's very human and it's very retailer centric. So
Right.
there's the relationship with the retailer, the communication, the rapport that's built. We look at multiple different facets, events, brand storytelling. We look at obviously the enviro aspect and commitment to telling that story. That's very important to us as a brand. And of course, then there's sales for sure. And right now, when we look at Spring 20, the biggest opportunity we have is to kind of ignite a fire under the inventory that retailers own. But given the fact that shipments have slowed down and a lot of retailers have made adjustments to that Spring 20 order book, we're also going to want to make sure that when we see that pent-up demand hit, and our spring season is a little bit longer than some apparel brands. We run all the way through July as a full price model for the spring business. And that's certainly going to carry into August for high summer, is just keeping that high touch point and making sure that they have the inventory that they need. The model I would throw out there is 100% sell through in June is not going to be a good model for our retailers. That's a nice metric from one perspective, but we also want to make sure they carry that momentum through the rest of the summer. And that's just going to be high touch.
Right. That's a great answer. Thank you. That is specialty right there. So I wanted to just give Tom an opportunity to talk about what you and I were talking about potential pent-up demand with climbers, for example, and your inventory position and how you're hoping to help your buyers. I think further that window, if you will, when things do turn back on and people are allowed to go back outside again.
Well, before I answer that, I do want to say I'm always impressed with Matt's ability to prepare. And based on his skin color, he's also been able to ski more than all of us combined.
It's the lighting.
We've done a number of things. I mean, we're kind of, in some aspects with climbing, there's been a big push around the community, especially here in North America, almost I would say borderlining on public shaming to not go out and climb, and really calling people out there in these big groups, and rightfully so, as we see this thing spread across cities and like cities like New York and the countries we deal with them. Keep in mind, we have a lot of production in Malaysia. We have a vast majority of our production in France. Both of those countries are on almost complete lockdown, right? So the impact is real there. What makes Petzl unique, especially specifically the climbing and hard goods line, is a number of our products are kind of the Kleenex of the industry or commodity brands. Specifically when I talk about headlamps, I mean, a lot of dealers have our headlamps. A lot of dealers have our belay devices. And the beauty about those, for the most part, as opposed to, maybe Patagonia, is we're not having seasonal color changes. We're not updating things fast. So our closeouts and our inventory levels stay pretty relatively the same all year round. I mean, of course, we have closeouts on harnesses and some color changes, but what that's allowed us to do is really stock up heavy here. So what we've been fortunate enough to do, we pushed our folks in Malaysia and France who have the ability to still ship, to continue to ship to us. So when we come out the other side of this, we're kind of crossing our fingers that this feels like a really huge ski season that goes to June. And as soon as the snow melts, we're all able to go out and go climbing, and there's this huge influx of sales, which we've seen in other winters. But hopefully we're set up now with continued incoming shipments from our distributors and our manufacturers that keeps us whole in the warehouse, and in fact, quite a bit above what we'd normally carry on standard inventory levels. But the goal is to be able to backfill and to support those retailers, online, brick and mortar, as fast as possible, and really to keep our reps financially stable too, because we think about our greater family. It's not just here at our home office here in Utah, but we have reps all over the country, and some of them have been with us for 20 plus years, like the Alta Group in the Northwest and Sky Ambitions in the Northeast. And that family value is really strong with Petzl, and we want to make sure we're supporting everybody.
Thank you. That's awesome. So Dave, can you chime in from the retailer perspective? Obviously you have 30 brick and mortar stores and 2 successful e-commerce sites. How are you working with your brands in terms of making sure that you're carrying the right amount of inventory, or maybe adjusting agreements or working with them in new ways right now?
That's very interesting. I mean, there's not a playbook for this, right? We have no idea what's going to happen in 2 weeks, much less in 2 months. So we're really tightening up our inventories. We're working with vendors right now to extend out terms, just to make sure that there's strong cash flow, cash available. The key here is our forecasting, and it's not just about when this is quote unquote over. We don't think it's going to be over anytime soon. And then there's elements beyond just being on lockdown. I mean, we have no idea what the economic impact is going to be and how it's going to impact individuals' spending, how it's going to impact their behaviors. So even though we might see us quote unquote come out of this, we don't know what it looks like on the other side still. So we're really taking a batten down the hatches approach, and we're going to be careful, very careful moving forward.
I have one other question before I let you off the hook here, Dave. So we talked a little bit in our rehearsal about consumer behavior. And I think that a lot of people are seeing bike as part of a new basics, right? And I was curious if you could talk a little bit about what you're seeing from consumer sentiment, since you are still seeing sales happen. I think that would be super insightful for all of us.
Yeah, what we're seeing is we're seeing customers that are coming in focused. They want a bicycle. They want their bicycle repaired. They don't want frills. You know, they definitely are coming in with a very practical approach. We're seeing deterioration on sales in some accessory categories and what we'd consider more enthusiast categories. It's really filtering down to quote unquote bike riding. And that's changing quite a bit at the retail level with regards to products and categories.
Okay, so I'm going to venture into a couple of questions here that are for the entire panel. So I'd like for each of you to, raise your hand and answer these as you would like to. But the first one that I wanted to throw out there is, what's your take right now about the vacation from MAP that's happening? I think this is something a lot of people would maybe want to hear from you on, in terms of everything that's going on out there in the market. Obviously, as you said, there's really no comp to look at what's happening right now in terms of pairing a pandemic with a recession and what that does to consumer behavior, how this has impacted us at this time of year, et cetera. So I would love to just get, your take collectively as a panel on what your views are around going off price right now. Maybe Matt, you could start, because I know we talked about this in our call. How about you, Matt?
It's a really interesting question. And to be honest, Patagonia has a pricing policy, obviously, that we work with. We actually don't talk about it. So that's a kind of a topic that I would shy away from in terms of the specifics. The one thing that we've been talking about as a more broader strategy with retailers is just kind of understanding where the consumer demand is going to come and when it's going to hit in the season. So obviously everyone's reacting. They're making their best possible decisions with their teams on both the retail side and the vendor side, to make some revisions to these policies as they stand typically in normal circumstances. I think what I would say is we're kind of taking the position of discipline and patience, and just trying to understand when the demand comes into play, what's the opportunity for full price business, and trying to generate as much revenue as we can with as strong a margin as we can. So, unfortunately, I can't really speak to that topic because of the nature of our policy, but that's one thing that I would say broadly is those decisions are not easy, and there's a sense of urgency around it. But I would just recommend speaking with your vendors, if you're a retailer, speaking with your sales manager, understanding the opportunities within the context of a MAP policy or a pricing policy, and just spend some time thinking about when's the best time to take advantage of those opportunities, either to break price, have an event, or to stay at full price.
Thank you. That's a great answer. And I was actually not implying that I wanted you to kind of open the kimono on what your policy is, but more I was concerned and curious about your take on timing. And so I think you provided a great answer to, and so just looking at you, Tom or Dave, do you have anything that you'd like to add on that front? Because ultimately, I think it's a very important topic today.
I personally, go ahead, Todd.
Thanks, Dave. I'm probably looking at it from a little different lens, more of when I was state director for Utah, and I think about all the places I love to be this time of year, right? I love Joshua Tree. I love going to skiing in the Tetons. And I think about the specialty retailer in those areas that don't really have a website or something that's really moving the needle for them in that capacity. And, these sales that are happening primarily online because people don't want to go shop, or heaven forbid, a national park is now closed in those communities. It puts them in a really tough situation. And I think it comes back to the community efforts to, hey, let's go buy gift certificates. Let's do things to support our local economy. But I think every retailer that's on this call will admit that's really nice and the gesture is wonderful, but gift cards are not going to support them through this really hard time. So I know we'll talk about it later with the payroll protection program a little bit, but I believe the real answer here for those communities is congressional and getting people to really recognize these places that we all go to and love, and the shops and the businesses that support us. They need extra support right now.
Dave, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, no, I was gonna, kind of with regards to what Matt said, I do think it's time to be patient. Consumers are showing to us right now that promotion isn't what's driving them, it's need. And my concern would be that there's a race to the bottom that develops, that really there's not even a race out there that's occurring. Consumers are buying what they want to buy right now. And we don't feel that promotion is going to motivate really meaningful revenue, additional revenue. So the hope is that that's largely avoided.
Right. That is definitely the hope. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to add on that? Again, because we're looking at the start of spring 20, while we're also trying to launch spring 21. And I know that there's also fall 20, looming out there as well. And I think that a lot of people who tuned in today are really kind of, I think, hoping to hear any insights possible or anything that you're doing to adjust internally. And that is actually the next question to the panel. Before we look at wrapping up our panel questions and answering everybody else's questions that are being posted, is really like the adjustment around how we're managing these 3 seasons at once right now, and how important that is in terms of, are there maybe 1 or 2 things that you could share that your business is keeping an eye on the ball around fall 20 specifically, or, anything that you can share in terms of just managing these 3 seasons concurrently during the kickoff of a recession and going through a pandemic with no horizon line right now? I think any help or any insights would be very much appreciated.
Yeah, I guess I can jump in there. As it relates to spring 20, I think it's just now, right now is the time for empathy, humility, listening, kind of understanding exactly where the individual retailer is. There's not a blanket solve necessarily for a wide range of dealers. So this is where we all kind of have to dig in and have really good, honest conversations and understand what the unique specific challenges are. Removing some restrictions around cancellation penalties, revision penalties, things like that, so that people can just look at their business and manage it as best they can with information that's changing, and kind of take some of the anxiety out of that. Obviously, we can't impact the whole thing at the vendor level, but doing what we can there. And then obviously, as things start to change, having the sales group, for us, we have an associate rep team, engaging them in the field to support retailers that may, again, have fewer employees or some limited hours or things like that. As it gets to fall 20, again, a great unknown how that season's going to go. We can reforecast to the best of our ability. But again, I would say for us, just taking a really patient approach. If things do return to normal and that consumer is excited to get out there and buy that insulation piece, that snow kit, you know, a travel product, whatever it might be across our spectrum of goods, we want to make sure that those orders stay intact. You know, one part of that is the whole cycle of canceling, revising, chasing, losing priority for shipment. We have time to be patient right now. And as long as we communicate that well and put the retailer at ease and know that we're working to their best interests, I think that's the best course of action that we can take for fall 20. And then considering spring 21, you know, I think our overarching goal, and we're working on strategies around this and how we bring it to life, but just respecting the retailer and the buyer's time. That's going to be such a huge asset and an important piece of their life over the next 6 months. So what can we do, especially someone like Patagonia that's got a really large line, right? It requires a lot of time. And so what can we do to build a system that puts tools into place that minimizes that time, that improves that buying experience when you take into consideration everything else that retailers are going to be dealing with right now?
That's a great answer. Tom, do you have anything you want to add? And then we'll go to you, Dave.
Yeah, so I think I fully agree with Matt in terms of the empathy and really being understanding. As all of us can probably attest to here, we're successful because consumers have made us successful and they like the products that we have, and retailers have supported that. But on companies, especially Patagonia and Petzl, that are global and are doing a lot of things, I think we have to be really transparent to talk about the complete supply chain from raw materials all the way to the consumer, because a lot of people might come to us saying, hey, we need deeper discounts, we need this or that. But the truth of the matter is you want the deeper discounts to buy products, but if we're not supporting our suppliers and the raw materials and those factories that were basically their sole source for revenue and supporting their business, then we're going to lose just at a later time. So Petzl globally, Patagonia, I know for sure. I'm sure David at a different level, we're looking at a much broader thing than the people that are just right in front of us, and being able to fund and support all of those entities.
That's a great, great insight. Thank you so much for sharing that. That really brings a lot of depth, I think, to what people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis by giving them a 30,000-foot view. So thank you. How about you, Dave?
I think the key here is to adjust our business expectations to kind of minimum levels, to make sure that we're being smart, being considerate, that, like I said, we don't even know what's going to happen in 2 weeks, much less fall 20. So we're definitely taking a less is more approach. We're going to take what we can get, which is going to be difficult as a specialty retailer. You know, we want to make sure our inventory mix is interesting to our customer and exciting and fun. And how do we do that at what will probably be a completely different level for fall of 20?
Right. And also just how you're keeping them engaged, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Very important.
Through the whole process. So one thing that I think has really emerged is just how important our relationships are, which is the whole reason we chose to get into this market and not maybe selling vacuum cleaners or something like that, right? We got into these industries and these communities because we love doing what we do, and we love serving other people who are discovering that or who also love it. And I think that working together, everything I've heard in the undercarriage of this panel has been about supporting each other. And I think while we're going through a, now recession in this pandemic, I think what I feel is cooperation and collaboration as much as we can is going to help all of us get through this. And whether that's patience or empathy, or really taking kind of a constructive view of kind of the ground war and the air war, I think we all need to do that before we get upset or perhaps get super fearful, et cetera. So this is all, I think, been fantastic information. And before we, well, actually, Tom, I think it might make sense for us to take questions, but then save some time for you to talk about the CARES Act, if you agree. Okay, because we definitely have some questions. And I'm just going to go ahead and go into the Q&A and the chat and pull those out. And again, if we don't address your question here, we will address it via email, or we will post something on snowsports.org to make sure everybody's questions get answered. So we have a question from Adam Gary. Thanks for writing in. Is Patagonia making changes, reduction to fall 20 production orders, anticipating revisions from retailers in order to balance ATS and closeouts based on new sales projections?
Wow. Yeah, that's a, great question. The easy answer is yes. I mean, fall 20 is booked. That business has been done. The biggest question around fall 20 is really delivery, and not so much at the production level, at the factory level, but actually more at the transportation level and how that arrives on time. So that's going to be something we're watching hyper closely, because again, that's delivery of the retail good to the retailer so that they can move it. Yeah, we're being very strategic. We're having a lot of conversations about how we best supply the most important products in our line. So, I sent something over to this group earlier, just a model about, we've been asking from a sales perspective to flip our mindset into the buyer's mindset or the shopper's mindset, if you will, and trying to think about what our retailers are going to most need over the next, 2 to 3 seasons, maybe even 4 seasons, and making sure that we have a really good beat on that product, that supply chain. So, the example I use is, if you go into a grocery store and they don't have some really random ingredient or specialty item, you're not that bummed out about it. You're just like, oh, the odds were low. But if they're out of the stuff that we're all experiencing now, like milk and eggs and toilet paper and all that sort of stuff, you get pretty frustrated. So that's the most important focus for us right now, is when we look at the categories and styles that drive the foundation of the business for the vast majority of our retailers, how do we make sure that stays, that product stays in the pipeline? So yes, taking all these different considerations into play and really looking at our supply chain over the next 18 months is critical.
Thanks. And here's a question from Val Powell from Toronto. She is a 100% commissioned sales rep, and she said she's taking a careful approach. I'm sorry, Val may be a he, so my apologies for not knowing. But basically the question is, does anyone have any predictions for commissioned reps and how they'll survive this pandemic? Or do you see a different approach to wholesale selling in the future? It's a great question. Who wants to take a swing at that?
I can touch on it. Val, I'll give you a comparison just to the States. It's definitely going to be different. But federally and locally within states, and I'm not sure in provinces, we've seen an outpouring of different programs, whether it's 0% interest loans or forgivable loans. They apply to all small businesses, and that can also apply to rep forces. And I think somebody called out here in one of the chats saying, hey, Petzl and Patagonia are clearly big brands and they can survive this. Really, maybe we can. And it may be more than a little bit than a smaller company, especially a startup. But I think all of us, and I think it's obvious why we're here, we have kind of a civic duty or a duty to the community to help support people and sharing the programs that we know, like the Payroll Protection Act or the grants that are coming out of different states are important to share those things with our sales reps as well as our retailers, because we want them to stay afloat. And those programs are available. For instance, the Payroll Protection Program is for all businesses that are below 500 people as a general rule of thumb. As a brand, all brands can't float, all businesses can't hold accounts or credits for everybody. So we need to encourage people to use and utilize those programs downstream as well as up.
And I guess I'd like to just add that the skills that you're learning as a rep today in terms of having to deliver what you normally do from a business meeting standpoint and a guidance standpoint and the business partnership standpoint, I think there's a ton to learn right now that's going to elevate your game in every season going forward. This is not going to be a one and done. So the more you can learn, the better, I think, is kind of what I think we all should be thinking right now. Okay, so I also had, let's see, there's a couple more questions here. Cristobal, hi Cristobal, it's nice to see you here. He's just wanting to know if we're seeing in general when the lockdowns ease. I think by and large, he's asking if we're going to see people wanting to go out more. when state parks open, et cetera. I think we've clearly hit that one. We definitely are, and we all feel fortunate to be in outdoor rec. We know that there's a big healing facet to being outside, and also just people being, prior to even having this crisis hit on the magnitude it has, we were already seeing trends in, retail at the end of the year and the beginning of the year around how people were really tired of spending 5 hours a day on their devices, and they were really excited to get back together in person. Right. And now I'm sure that might be powered even more so, the fact that we've all been stuck in our houses as we're all broadcasting from today. So I think that obviously we can't see into the future, but I think we all feel very bullish that is going to be the case. And then there are a couple of questions in here, if I can roll a few of them into one. There's a couple of people wondering if there's going to be an expected delay on delivery for outerwear for fall. Same came in for hard goods. Is there anything anybody wants to offer in terms of just delays on delivery into fall 20?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. The best answer we can give is that it's really changing every day. I don't know, from a soft goods perspective versus hard goods. Tom will have some insight there on the hard goods side, obviously. But it's something that we're monitoring super closely. Like I said, the factories, at least from a Patagonia perspective, just to clarify, is the factories were in good shape from a production perspective. It's really the overwater and then the ports, at what level they're functioning, what kind of backlog they're dealing with, and then how quickly we can get it into our distribution centers and pushed out. So obviously that's something we're going to be communicating at a very high level and consistently as that news develops. But, we're optimistic, I would say, given the production side of the equation, and now we just have to watch the transportation side.
Does anyone else would like to chime in on that on the panel?
I think most likely, if we look at models, it's not going to be a red light now and a green light globally tomorrow. We're seeing countries ramp up with this, and then we're seeing them kind of recover. And so we hope to see that specifically for us in Malaysia and France. And we might be a little more impacted here at the time, but the ideal situation, not ideal, it all goes away, right? Which is probably not. But the ideal situation right now for us is that it slows down in those other countries. They're able to pick back up production. So the time we're truly back online here in North America, we're able to still supply. Keep in mind, Patagonia is probably the same as we are, as we're stocking up inventory in our warehouses, whether things are slowing down or we're still receiving shipments, just so we're ready for that go date.
And then Cassie Abel has a question in the chat, actually. Petzl and Patagonia are clearly big brands with a little extra cushion to be patient. What advice do you have for smaller brands who are trying to stay afloat and don't have the cushion to be quite as flexible with retailers? And I think, Tom, this is a great tee up for you to maybe talk about your inside baseball with the CARES Act and payroll protection.
Happy to do it. And Cassie, thanks for the question. I'm not sure what state you're in. Maybe you can pop it in here. My best advice right out of the gate is make sure you get in contact with your Office of Outdoor Recreation if you have one. Cassie, you're in Idaho, you don't have one yet. So I would look at Department of Commerce, let them know, meet with all of your legislators or send them a letter. What we're facing here in Utah with the payroll protection program, really phenomenal for small businesses. I will say this is one of the few times in the last few years where Congress is really doing something good right out of the gate, right? They came out with the $2 trillion package, but it's not perfect. A certain number of dollars of that will go towards businesses that have under 500 people. The one catch that we're learning here specifically with Petzl, if the owner of your company, even though we're a Utah-based business, same as POC, same as Amer Sports, same as Hester in Colorado. We're all companies that are based and spending money in our states, but the parent company is not in the US. If you're in the US, you can't apply for the payroll protection. So the reason I say that is I think all of those groups need to come together, whether in a state or whether it's under OIA or some group or SIA, to say we need global or national support for these reasons. And in your case, I'm not sure if you're completely based in Idaho. I'm guessing you are. I would get together with your Department of Commerce, have them walk you through the Payroll Protection Act. SIA has a lot of information on that as well. They can send it to you. I'm sure OIA does too, and get in tune with those. But I'll put some serious urgency to it because it's supposed to go live tomorrow. Now, you don't have to have a lot of information. You need to have payroll, kind of where that's going, basically your tax filings from the year before, but you need to have it ready to go tonight, to hit go tomorrow, and contact your local bank, because as rumors fly, a lot of people are saying the PPP program itself will run out of funding by the end of day tomorrow because so many people are queued up to take it. So again, get your paperwork in order, contact your bank today, and try to capitalize on that tomorrow.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you so much. Let's see. It looks like we have one more question in the queue, and then we do have a few more minutes if we have anybody who wants to ask any more questions. I also can bring up a couple more points if need be, but the question that we have here from Thomas Kaja, I hope I'm saying your name right. Have retailers been modifying fall 20 pre-books, or are they being patient with the hopes of strong rebound for fall, as well as vendors hoping for strong rebound for fall 20? I think we've hit the latter half of that. And again, it's a crystal ball question. But Dave, I would love to just get your take on this. I know, here you are right at the start of your spring high season with bike, but obviously you also are a snow sports vendor. So I know that that's way out in the future, but humor us here. Do you have any thoughts on if you're going to be modifying fall 20 pre-books?
There's no question that we're going to be modifying them. I mean, our forecasts are going, all being revised right now, and we're not bullish.
Okay, that's great. He's a straight shooter and always has been, so thank you. That's super helpful. Let me check here. It looks like we got a couple. Okay, I think we've hit all of our questions. Is there anything, I know all of these panelists did a great job preparing for you today, and I'd like to just ask the panelists if there's anything else that you feel you can add to the conversation. We are going to have quite a resource list for you, as we close this and send out follow-up to everybody who attended. But I just wanted to make sure everybody on the panel, if there's anything more that you'd like to talk about or address with our big group of people here. This is a really well-attended webinar. Please make sure you can speak up now.
I'll chime in. I can always keep talking, Matt, Dave, sorry. One thing I'll say, I spent the 8 years prior, really almost 20 years prior, working for Outdoor Brands before I took over Utah's Office of Outdoor Recreation, spent the 4 years there. And prior to working for the state, I was very much head down. I knew every single detail about every carabiner. I knew what our dealers were doing. I knew what was happening in the Petzl world, and I had my blinders on. But I was really blind to everything outside this and the impact I could have as just an employee of Petzl on the local community as well as nationally when it comes to supporting the outdoor industry. So this is the perfect time for us to have that information. So reach out to your offices of outdoor recreation, utilize them, take the time to step out of the shop, out of your brand, and see where you can help and what you might be able to bring in from other resources, because your congressional leaders are there for you. It might be hard to get them, but make sure you keep hounding them. Your associations are there to help, like SA and the thing we're doing now. So do your part and get engaged and encourage your employees to do the same, because we're going to have a much greater impact as an industry if we come out all together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something I would add to that, Tom, like in the spirit of esprit de corps, one topic that's been, and it got touched on earlier, but I'm willing to open myself up to any questions, like whether on a personal level, if you want to reach out or anything along those lines. But obviously a lot of questions around video capability and shooting line videos, especially thinking about spring 21. Got the indication from a B2B call that happened earlier this week that's pretty new. It's hard to say. I think from my perspective, it's not something we actively go out and search for, other product line videos, and we haven't had a lot of conversations about it to date. We've been doing them at Patagonia for just about 10 years. And I was actually closely attached to that project along with a couple other reps. We early on, there was a couple of us that had showrooms that enabled that project to take place, but we've learned a ton about how to make an effective and efficient product line video. And there's no need for everyone on the vendor side or the rep side on this call, or, you know, in the broader industry, to recreate all of those wheels. And there's a lot of wheels. When you start diving into it, you're like, holy cow, this takes a long time. They can be really big projects. They can also be really efficient if you have a program and a model and a storyboard and a plan of attack, and also a scale about how to approach it, because they're national tools, right? So it's really directed at, it's the 80-20 rule, right? How do you get 80% of the foundational business covered while leaving room to be creative with your specialty dealers? So I'm just going to throw that out there, that I'm open to have that conversation. I think it would, if you haven't done it before, it would probably save you a bunch of time and a bunch of money and a bunch of resources. And I think, you know, if that's a tool that becomes important for spring 21, fall 21 sell-in, you know, that's an area where we can contribute some information and help ease that process. So just volunteering that, if you'd like to reach out, I'd be happy to chat about it.
And that's an incredible offer, because as I said earlier, a lot of people are looking to brands like Patagonia to see what's going to work. Everybody wants to be the best partner they can right now, especially to their buyers. So I think that that's a fantastic offer that you've just made. And maybe that's something that we could create for our follow-up to the webinar. I'm happy to work with you on that to make a resource available. And I want to just say that a couple more comments have come in. Oliver Steffen, hey Oliver, with G3, wrote in asking if this will be available as a recorded episode. It absolutely will. We'll be sending that out to everybody. So please know that you're going to get a lot of resources. Also, Tom Adams shared the SBA loan program link in here. And I just want to say to all of our panelists, the way that you approach this panel, and obviously thank you to SIA for hosting this panel, but the way that these three gentlemen came to the table, it was literally no holds barred, open playbook for everybody to learn from, for everybody to get through this, I think, as elegantly as we can together. And really the orchestration and the collaboration, as I said, is really what's going to make the difference here and make everybody's life easier. So not recreating the wheel, not being afraid to reach out to people who maybe formerly were off limits from a competitor standpoint. I think all holds are, you know, off, our bets are off, or whatever that statement is. I can't remember how to say it right. But my point is, collaboration is really key here. And I applaud SIA for these town hall forums. I'm very happy to be helping. I know everybody is. And I just want to, you know, hand it over to Nick to wrap up today. But thank you so much, Nick, for making this platform available.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Dave, Matt, Tom, thanks for your time. And thanks for your honesty and willing to jump in. Kristin, it's always a pleasure. And this is not the end. We have a number of these webinars in the coming weeks, and which Kristin will be helping us with. So that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for joining the call. We hope you found it beneficial. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to email us at info@snowsports.org, and we will be in touch immediately. And please don't forget to visit our industry hub for all the resources you need, and a recording of today's discussion will be posted there today as well. I know a number of people asked about that, in case you want to re-listen to it and share it with your community. You can find it at snowsports.org/COVID hub. Next town hall will be focused on employer resources, and we'll be sending out a registration link to that shortly. Myself and my staff are here to do whatever we can during these tough times. Please lean on us. This is why we are here. We'll get through this and become stronger because of it. So I'm pretty confident of that. And so at any rate, thank you once again. Stay healthy and have a great day.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Thanks, SIA.